So this is a CDL 7.5-inch filter press, and it's a full beam. You pull this pin over here, and it locks in place inverted so you can put your assembly together. They also give you these lining rods, so you put those right down in there like that. Then we'll start out with our filters. Got a case of them there. They've got 2 holes for the flow in and out, universal. Slide your first one down on the lining rods. Then you take a hollow plate, filter goes between every layer. Then a solid plate. So when we say hollow plate and solid plate, what we got here, and these alternate with filters between them, is the syrup comes in here and then out through this hole. And then it sheds across here, hits this, and it's able to go down in this plate to where we have these weep holes right here, and it'll drain into here once it's filtered. So this is where the syrup comes in to be filtered, and once it's filtered, it'll shed down into this hole and then get pumped out. So those are our plates. We alternate them, filter on either side. Another very important thing to note is these notches right here. Those all have to line up. So if you're not getting syrup through your filter press, there's a good chance that one of these somewhere along the line got flicked. Lastly, we got our thick end plate here. So this one's got the drain holes here. That's capped off. Once again, make sure to line up your notch. You also got to pull out your lining rods at this point. Now we've got our washers and our snails, nuts. They look like snails. Alternate them back and forth so you get nice even pressure on there. Set that back up. Give it a double check that you got these all lined up here. And you're ready to go. So here we are, folks, in action. I've got my suction line in the bucket of syrup, and I got the discharge line for this filtered syrup running into the evaporator currently. The 2 ways to do this are to have a recirculation line on. We didn't have that early in the season here, but we did add that later on in the season. Highly recommended to have a recirculation line on there. But what we were doing early season and what can be done is to pull in thin sap from the rear pan into your filters when you're done each day, and then just purge that out with syrup before you keep the syrup. And so that's what we've done here, and I've just switched over that discharge line into our bottling container to finish off the rest of this syrup here. So I mix a certain amount of diatomaceous earth, which is a filter aid, into the syrup. So I'm just giving that a stir here to keep it up off the bottom so that it will go into our filters. And what that does is forms a cake, which you'll see in a little bit here, between the two solid plates, between the filters, in that hollow plate. And what the earth does in there is suspends any sugar, sand, and other foreign matter that you don't want in your syrup. If you didn't use this filter aid, your sugar, sand, and other matter would get plastered on those filters, and you wouldn't get very much syrup through the bank of filters before you had to change them out again. Here we are with a full filter press. We're going to tear this thing apart, and you're going to get to see the cakes and how this thing comes apart. So we've got our recirculation line on here. This is late season at this point. And so we've put our hoses out of the way. We're going to spin these snails off of here and pull it apart. So how we know when to change this? Well, we've got a pressure gauge down there at the other end, and really we watch that. Early season, you don't see much pressure till you're at 30-40 gallons. Late season, you might get 10, maybe 20 gallons through there before you got to change it. So we look for a pressure of 10 to 30, and if I'm hitting 30 or 40 psi, it's definitely time to change it. 10 to 15 psi, I keep an eye on it, but I'll still run it at that point. So when I use a hammer on this, these housings are aluminum, so you just gotta tap them a little bit. Don't exert too much force on there, you will break them. I like to have 3 buckets right here. 2 of them are for the filter parts, and the last one is for the filter cakes and the filters themselves. So just make sure we have all these sections separated here, pop them apart. Once again, you see the end there, get that off there. Then here we got a cake, a filter on either side, and a cake in between. So it's very important to pay good attention to how your cake comes out of there, if it's too full or if it's not full enough. It's also important to keep track of how many scoops of earth you're putting in your syrup so that you know if you have 10, 15, 20 scoops in there. That way you'll know for next time. Toward the end of the season, you're going to have less earth in there because there's a lot more foreign matter. So we've got this mostly disassembled. I'll show you this hollow plate again here, that hole coming in. That's where the unfiltered syrup comes through. And so then it comes into that cake and then gets pushed outwards through the filters and then up against this solid plate. And it seeps down through these holes right here and then down through and then finally into that discharge hose and into your whatever you're putting your filtered syrup into. So here's a good representation of that recirculation line I was talking about. It's in the lower part of the video here. And then this is our filtered syrup getting bottled in this 5-gallon jug. So here's our two-way valve that we use to control our pressure. We're able to send it either direction, and once we hit about 30 psi consistently, it's time to change out our filters.